Welcome, everyone. Today we're entering into an exploration of meditation. And I chose two meditation texts, first of all, so that we could clarify what we mean by meditation and start the groundwork of meditation, but also because you can't separate meditation from the key concepts of Buddhism. And this way we can fit both subjects together. So the two texts that I chose were Thrangu Rinpoche's Tranquility and Insight and Pema Chodron's really very lovely book called How to Meditate. And Thrangu Rinpoche is approaching his teaching in a very traditional way. So in our tradition, we rely on either sutras, the words of the Buddhas, or commentaries by great masters who have clearly demonstrated realization. So we could say that we trust the medicine these doctors are giving because, it's evident in their lifetime, and each of their students then also achieved the same realization. So we can clearly see that this particular medicine is effective. And he is giving a commentary on another great master's text, Jamgon Khenmo Rinpoche, who organized the teachings that were existent in that era in Tibet into a multi-volume treasury of knowledge. And this is one text within that treasury of knowledge that is particularly on meditation. Pema Chodron, we know in our lives as a master communicator. And what she's able to do is not only convey in language that reflects how our culture understands things, but because she has a profound understanding, she can see the approach of the Tibetan teachings, but also the language that the Tibetan teachings are using. So we are hearing Thrangu Rinpoche through a translator. She can have precision in language in terms of a native speaker, and it's based on her direct experience. So Thrangu Rinpoche, I don't know how many years of retreat he did, but many, many years of retreat, and is acknowledged in his lineage as one of the great masters. And he died just last year. What you may not know about Pema Chodron is that she did the traditional 3-year retreat, and she did the 3-year philosophy education that we call Shedra. And then she saw that the world was becoming more complex and more difficult. And in order to teach, she needed to spend part of every year in retreat. So she spends almost 7 months of every year in retreat, and the rest of the time she teaches. So she's a wonderful example of someone from our culture offering their understanding. So I also wanted to mention that something wonderful happened when Thrangu Rinpoche died. They uploaded all of his books, and he must have written 50 to 100 books. And they put them on their website, Namo Buddha, either for free or for a couple of dollars. And then other teachers started joining in. Thrangu Rinpoche was the abbot of Gampo Abbey that Pema Chodron has guided all of these years, and Pema Chodron uploaded quite a few of her books onto that site as well. So you can find the Tranquility and Insight and read that at home as we go through it. And I forget which books of Pema Chodron's are on that site, but quite a few. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. So Namo Buddha, Namo Buddha, Buddha. So both books begin with, why are we meditating? What is the view that's being presented of meditation? And how do we understand our direct experience in the context of this view, in terms of, why are we going to the doctor and what kind of medicine do we need? So I would say, from my experience, and I suspect from many of our experiences, we come to meditation because we're suffering, and all the different things we tried to do about it didn't work. So we're looking for the path out of suffering. And Thrangu Rinpoche starts with, we're presenting meditation as the medicine that assuages meditation, but what is meditation? He begins with defining meditation. And this is very traditional in the Tibetan tradition, because there's an understanding that to communicate, we have to have the same meaning to the words that we're hearing. And when I was thinking about why it's important to clarify meditation just now, I was thinking about, everybody may have a slightly different definition of meditation. If you went to some lecture on mindfulness, you would come away with the word meditation. When you go to yoga, they use the word meditation. Each of the different eras of Buddhism present meditation in a slightly different way. So they might offer a slightly different definition. So for us to understand each other and to go forward, we have to define meditation in the way that I'm using it in the Tibetan tradition. Not that there's anything wrong about the other traditions and the other ways you may have learned meditation. It's that you can't just overlay an experience without understanding the definition of that experience, because it might not make sense or apply. So in the Tibetan understanding, when we say the word samadhi or meditation, or in Tibetan it's tingzin or gum, that word means the mind becoming stable and unwavering. So we use examples like a mountain. So there is the quality that we've been often talking about. What's the difference between distraction and stable and unwavering? So the second we start meditating, we see how wildly distracted our mind is, and we can distinguish that there are moments when it's stable, and that meditation is about becoming unwaveringly stable. So it means all of those negative thoughts, all of the obscuring thoughts or we say the veils of ignorance, the misunderstandings, and emotional upheavals are unaffected. Our mind is stable and unwavering, and all of those states may pass through, but it doesn't affect this stable, unwavering quality. And the process of meditation is becoming accustomed to this stability. So when we're accustomed to this stability, first we can see what's the difference between our wild mind and our stable mind. And then as we become accustomed to that stable mind becoming home instead of the wild mind becoming home, then whatever is going on in life doesn't affect that stability. So then we can say the practice of meditation, or the way to that unwavering stability, comes through tranquility meditation and insight meditation. And these two always go together. And no matter what technique of meditation you're working with, it's always based with understanding, tranquility, and insight. We call tranquility shamatha, we call tranquility calm abiding, we call insight vipassana. So they're two different practices that are what we mean by the process of becoming unwaveringly stable and at home in that. So then he goes on to say, we go through so many investigations, so many different kinds of Dharma teachings. There's a tremendous variety, and you may visit lots of different teachers. So the first process of understanding comes from listening. And then, let's say, later this afternoon, you might think about, well, what does unwavering stability mean? And what is it like to be unaffected by emotional upheavals? And so that's contemplating. So we're taking what we've listened to and we're turning it over and seeing, does this ring true to me? And how might I work with this stage of understanding? But then Rinpoche points out, these two are helpful, but we don't fully understand, and we can't fully understand until we bring the listening and the thinking about it, or the intellectual understanding, into a full lived experience. And that full lived experience comes in meditation. So we have a direct experience with the Dharma concepts that we've been hearing, that we've been thinking about, in the quiet of our mind, in the experience of, I can see this is having a resonance that is changing my lived experience, changing my understanding. And this experiential understanding is what frees us, I love these old-fashioned words, frees us from the bondage of negative emotions or the emotional upheaval, frees us from the bondage of the misunderstandings or obscurations. So when we don't have a full understanding, we're still trapped. when we have a full understanding, we're released from the bondage. And then we bring to our meditation experience, this endeavor, the intention of benefiting not only ourselves, but all sentient beings. So we bring our own bondage, and we see there is a medicine, and we want that medicine to be available to all sentient beings. So this is Thrangu Rinpoche's beginning approach, really clarifying when we talk about meditation, we're talking about something specific, unwavering stability that consists of calm abiding and insight. So Pema Chodron, in her introduction, approaches it by making it relatable. Okay, let's start again with, we come because we're suffering, our world is suffering, we see suffering in our families, we don't know how to help ourselves, and we can see that if we can't help ourselves, we really can't effectively help others. So she expresses this in terms of the wildness of our minds. And most of you have been meditating for a while, and some of you have been meditating for a very long time. But if you think back to the experience of helplessness in the wildness of mind before you started meditating, it's hard to remember for me, but I don't think I had a fraction of a second of stability. So she sets the stage with, our minds are wild. And the first thing that happens in meditation is we just open to this experience. So instead of being afraid of the experience, judging the experience, thinking something is wrong with the experience, we open to the experience. And the process of opening to the experience through cultivating meditation, we become more settled and relaxed with whatever life brings. So she's saying, this is the gift. You're suffering and you're fearful, and you could be open and relaxed with whatever life brings. And then she gives a tantalizing hint of the implication of this open and relaxed state. And she talks about nowness, the uniqueness of each moment experienced directly with no conceptual overlay. The uniqueness of each moment, unmediated. No thoughts about it, no judgments about it, no narration, no naming, just nowness, open, relaxed, direct experience of the uniqueness of each moment. So Lucy was asking last week about sitting on her porch, and I'm just going to imagine my experience of this. So I'm sitting on a bench looking at the ocean. There are no immediate emotional overlays. My mind is not wild, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and I feel relaxed. Is this the uniqueness of a moment without a conceptual overlay? And we have to understand then what is a conceptual overlay? So we can distinguish our minds not being as wild as they could be, but this lovely sitting in a relaxed state, looking at the ocean, for me also includes subtle sensory perception. I'm enjoying looking at the ocean. I'm enjoying the just right, not too hot, not too cold. I'm enjoying many subtle sensory qualities. I may not be naming them or narrating them, but there is still an implied I that's experiencing something sensory. So this is not yet the uniqueness of nowness with no conceptual overlay. It's on the way, but it's not yet the fullness that's possible. Anyway, she gives this tantalizing hint about nowness. That's where we're going. So she's saying, this is a map. This is where we're going. And then she goes directly into one of the most key Buddhist frameworks, the Four Noble Truths. She doesn't call it the Four Noble Truths, but she explains it in just a few sentences. So again, she's giving a hint of a map. She quotes the Buddha saying, I teach only one thing, suffering and the cessation of suffering. So here we are, normal people experiencing suffering, and the world is suffering, and we're hearing, oh, the Buddha is teaching suffering and the cessation of suffering. And then we clarify again, what is suffering? The Buddha was not saying, I'm teaching how to get out of any kind of pain and be pain-free forever. In fact, the Buddha is pointing out life, as we experience life, is going to have painful moments. We can't escape the painful moments. We can put that simply in terms of sickness, old age, and death. That is going to be present, and it's going to be present for ourselves and our friends and family, our dearest ones, and beings around the world. But suffering is something else. Suffering is dwelling in the pain with narration. I don't like aging. I really want it to be different. I want to go to a doctor and have it fixed. I really resist not being able to do what I was able to do at even 50. So there are all of these reactions to the basic facts of life that cause us to suffer. I can't fix my aging body to make it 50 again or 60 again. Just not possible. And the more I try and do that, the more frustrated I would become. And I can't fix that this is going to happen to the people I care the most about. What we're talking about in terms of suffering and the causes of suffering is looking at how do we free ourselves from resisting, dwelling, narrating that increase our suffering. And what is really at the very root of this the thought that we could have an unchanging body, the thought that there is an unchanging self that could be always happy, always satisfied, always content. So what we're presenting, what Thrangu Rinpoche and Venerable Pema Chodron are presenting, is a clear path of how to understand what causes us suffering and what is underneath those causes, those symptoms, and how does understanding the mind, pacifying the mind, stabilizing the mind, uproot that first cause. So there's a wonderful quote from Shantideva, and we always come back to Shantideva because his poetry is so clear. For all anxiety and fear, all suffering in boundless measure, their source and wellspring is the mind itself. We can never take and turn aside the outer course of things, but only seize and discipline the mind itself and what is there remaining to be curbed. So we're presenting the view, both teachers are presenting the view that meditation is not about feeling good. And in Venerable Pema's words, meditation gives us the opportunity to have an open, compassionate attentiveness to whatever is going on. A meditative state like the big sky, spacious enough to accommodate everything that arises. So we might say at this point, well, I can see that this might benefit me, and I can hear you, and I'm going to contemplate this. But what is that? What is the relationship to benefiting all sentient beings? And I saw the most incredible movie this week, and I was talking about it a little bit on Thursday. It's about Mr. Rogers. It's called something like A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood. It was about this very angry, suffering author from Esquire who was given the assignment to interview Mr. Rogers. And his technique was to find the flaw in anything and everyone, expose it, and you might say he specialized personally in sort of provoking outrage with his interviews. And, essentially he's been told you have to go interview a kindergarten teacher that everybody loves. And if you watch this movie, it's like watching a bodhisattva hold that open, compassionate attentiveness. And what happens with one suffering person and what happens with groups of suffering people, if there's one person who can hold that open, compassionate attentiveness. So the angry author keeps testing the boundaries until he can trust in this, that this open, compassionate attentiveness is genuine. And all Mr. Rogers is doing is just being unwavering. just unwavering, compassionate attentiveness. And he brings that to all of his activities. But this author keeps going, this can't be true. This can't be true. There's got to be a flaw in there somewhere. Unwavering, meaning unwavering. Then the author starts to trust and soften and not actually ask for help, but seeing that in this example, there is help. And he starts traveling with Mr. Rogers. And one of the scenes from the movie that is just so lovely, Mr. Rogers was a very humble person and, would ride the subway and instead of like a huge celebrity in a limousine. So they get on the subway, and you imagine a New York subway has all kinds of people, all kinds of races, all kinds of classes. And Mr. Rogers is just unwavering. It's not affecting, adulation is not affecting him. Celebrity is not affecting him. But all of the people in the subway car remember something about how they loved him as a child and how they learned something from him as a child. And they all break out in song. So the subway car in unison starts singing the neighborhood songs. So I found this example so poignant because we're not talking about something unique to Buddhism or unique to Tibetan Buddhism. We're talking about how do we learn this open-hearted, compassionate, unwavering attentiveness in which we are free from all of our negativity and can hold the presence of nowness for the neighborhood. And the resonance of that is healing, is love. So we experience this, some people who've met Garchen Rinpoche can say, oh, I experienced this with Garchen Rinpoche. You may have experienced this with a teacher in your life. So you have a trust in this unwavering, compassionate attentiveness that is achievable. And so as we continue with these two texts, we'll begin to talk about what are steps and methods and understandings that go into what we're defining meditation as, this unwavering, compassionate, open stability. So I'd like to, in each of our meditations or Dharma classes on these Sundays, then take about 10 minutes for developing this unwavering quality. There are many meditation techniques, and we have to start with shamatha, or calm abiding. It's not possible to work with insight till we have some level of calm abiding. So one is a doorway for the other, but meditation is both of them. So a very simple and easy technique is to count your breaths. And as you're counting your breaths, breathing in, breathing out is one breath, monitoring for stability and unwaveringness, or I've been using the word distraction, but I don't want an overlay of judgment. So you can change the vocabulary just to say, this monitoring is noticing with curiosity. Am I able to be unwavering for one breath? I might not be seeing a big emotional upheaval, but is there just a flash of what's for lunch, or a flash of, for me today, what about the flooding that's happening all around my house? Or a flash of, oh, the heater is at exactly the right temperature. So they're large and small movements of the mind away from the unwavering, and in this case, focus on the breath. And we're looking with curiosity and interest, not judgment. So ideally, you'll practice counting to 10. Every time you notice a distraction, you go back to 1. And you notice when you hit 10. So if you're able to hold this unwavering state, it also means not fogging out. So by being clear in the count to 10, you notice when there's a slight I'm just going to say laziness in the attention, that you go over the instruction. Again, don't overlay any of the words with judgment. So let's practice this for about 10 minutes. Just watching your breath and counting each breath, noticing the wavering. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So we'll close the